If the fitness advice you have been following for the last 20 years actually worked, you would not be watching this video. The problem is not your effort. The problem is not your discipline. The problem is that the fitness industry built its most popular advice around bodies in their 20s and 30s, and nobody updated the manual when you turned 40. After 40, your hormonal environment, your recovery capacity, your muscle fiber composition, and your metabolic response to exercise all change in specific and measurable ways. The advice that worked at 30 does not just work less well at 45. In some cases, it actively works against you. Today, we are going through 5 pieces of fitness advice that the research says you need to stop following and exactly what to do instead. Here is what makes this particularly frustrating. Most of the fitness advice circulating in mainstream culture, the advice your trainer gave you, the advice in the magazines, the advice on the popular YouTube channels, was developed and tested on younger bodies. The research on exercise physiology after 40 tells a different story. After 40, cortisol takes longer to return to baseline after intense exercise. Muscle protein synthesis responds differently to training volume and frequency. Recovery time between sessions extends significantly. The hormonal response to different types of exercise shifts in ways that make some approaches actively counterproductive. A study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that exercise protocols optimized for adults under 35 produced measurably different, and in some cases opposite, hormonal responses in adults over 45. Same exercise, different body, different outcome. The 5 myths we are about to cover are not fringe opinions. They are mainstream fitness beliefs that peer-reviewed research has consistently challenged, specifically for the over 40 population. This is the most damaging myth in mainstream fitness, and it is doing the most harm to bodies over 40. The belief is straightforward. More cardio equals more calories burned equals more fat lost. And for bodies under 35 with healthy cortisol regulation, this math works reasonably well. After 40, it does not. Here is the mechanism. Steady-state cardio sessions lasting longer than 45 minutes consistently elevate cortisol, the primary stress hormone, for hours after the session ends. In younger bodies, cortisol returns to baseline relatively quickly. After 40, that return takes significantly longer. Chronically elevated cortisol, the same mechanism we covered in videos 2 and 3, suppresses fat metabolism, increases fat storage in the abdominal region, and breaks down muscle tissue for fuel, the very tissue you need to maintain a healthy metabolism. A study published in the European Journal of Applied Physiology found that prolonged cardio sessions in adults over 45 produced cortisol elevations that lasted up to 4 hours after exercise, compared to under 2 hours in younger subjects. More cardio after 40 does not just produce diminishing returns. In excess, it actively suppresses the hormonal environment required for fat loss. What to do instead? Replace long, steady-state cardio sessions with 20 to 30-minute sessions combining resistance training and short, high-intensity intervals. The hormonal response is the opposite of prolonged steady-state cardio. Testosterone and growth hormones spike, and cortisol stays lower, which directly supports fat metabolism in the over 40 hormonal environment. Delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, is one of the most misunderstood signals in fitness. The belief is that soreness equals muscle damage equals muscle growth. And if you are not sore the next day, you did not work hard enough. The research does not support this. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found no consistent correlation between the degree of muscle soreness and the degree of muscle protein synthesis, the actual biological process of muscle growth. Some of the most productive training sessions in terms of muscle adaptation produce minimal soreness. Some of the most brutal soreness-inducing sessions produce minimal adaptation. What DOMS actually indicates is unfamiliar movement, your body encountering a stimulus it has not recently experienced. It is a novelty signal, not a progress signal. After 40, this distinction becomes critical because DOMS recovery takes significantly longer than it does in younger bodies. Chasing soreness after 40 leads to chronically under-recovered muscle tissue, which suppresses adaptation and increases injury risk simultaneously. What to do instead? Track progressive overload, adding small increments of resistance or additional repetitions over time, rather than subjective soreness. Consistent progressive overload with adequate recovery is the research-supported driver of muscle adaptation at any age. This is the most repeated piece of diet and exercise advice in mainstream culture, and it is the one that has failed more people over 40 than any other. The calorie in, calorie out model is not wrong as a mathematical framework. Energy balance matters, but it is catastrophically incomplete as a practical strategy for adults over 40 because it ignores the hormonal environment that governs whether the body uses incoming energy for fuel or stores it as fat. As we covered in video 2, insulin timing, cortisol levels, growth hormone availability, and alpha-2 receptor sensitivity all determine what your body does with the food you eat and the energy you expend. Eat less and move more without addressing those hormonal variables, and you get the outcome millions of people over 40 have experienced. A smaller version of the same body, lower energy, slower metabolism, and fat that redistributes rather than disappears. A study published in Obesity found that calorie-restricted adults over 45 who did not address hormonal variables lost an average of 60% of their weight loss from muscle mass rather than fat, which worsened their metabolic rate and made long-term fat loss progressively harder. What to do instead? Address the hormonal environment first, sleep, cortisol management, meal timing, before aggressive calorie restriction. Preserve muscle mass through resistance training. The calorie deficit follows naturally from a corrected hormonal environment rather than being forced against it. Pre-workout, static stretching is one of the most universally taught warm-up practices in fitness. It is also one of the most consistently disproven by the research. Static stretching, holding a stretch for 30 to 60 seconds before resistance training, has been shown in multiple studies to reduce power output, reduce strength, and reduce neuromuscular efficiency during the subsequent training session. A meta-analysis published in the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science in Sports found that static stretching immediately before resistance training reduced maximal strength by up to 8% and power output by up to 5.5%. The effect was consistent across age groups, but more pronounced in older subjects whose neuromuscular efficiency is already reduced compared to younger adults. The mechanism is straightforward. Static stretching temporarily reduces the stiffness of the muscle tendon unit, which is exactly what you need for efficient force transmission during resistance training. A stretched muscle is a less efficient force producer. What to do instead? Replace static stretching before training with dynamic warm-up, leg swings, arm circles, body weight squats, hip hinges that increases blood flow and muscle temperature without reducing force production capacity. Save static stretching for after training when reducing muscle stiffness is actually beneficial. The no days off mentality is one of the most pervasive and most damaging beliefs in fitness culture, and after 40 it is particularly destructive. Muscle protein synthesis, the biological process of building and repairing muscle tissue, does not occur during training. It occurs after training, during recovery, and it peaks between 24 and 72 hours post-session. Training the same muscle group before that synthesis window closes does not accelerate muscle growth. It interrupts it. After 40, this window extends compared to younger bodies. Research published in the American Journal of Physiology found that muscle protein synthesis rates after resistance training decline more slowly in older adults, meaning the repair and adaptation process takes longer to complete. Training over incomplete recovery does not add to the adaptation. It erases it. Additionally, cortisol, which is elevated during and after intense training, takes longer to clear after 40. Training through incomplete recovery means training with already elevated cortisol, compounding the hormonal suppression of fat metabolism and muscle growth simultaneously. What to do instead? Build 2 to 3 full recovery days into your weekly training structure. Use those days for walking, light mobility work, and sleep optimization, all of which actively support the recovery processes that training initiates. Recovery is not the absence of training. It is where the results of training actually happen. Everything covered in this video points to the same underlying principle. After 40, the body does not respond to exercise volume and intensity the way it did at 25. It responds to exercise quality and hormonal context. The over 40 training framework that the research supports looks like this: 3 resistance training sessions per week targeting compound movements, not isolation exercises, not marathon cardio sessions. 20 to 30 minutes of high-intensity interval work, 2 days per week maximum. 2 to 3 full recovery days. Consistent sleep of 7 to 9 hours. Meal timing aligned with the circadian rhythm as covered in video 2. This is not a less demanding approach than what most people over 40 are currently doing. In most cases, it is more demanding because it requires doing less of what feels productive and more of what actually produces results. The feeling of working hard and the biology of producing results are not the same thing after 40. The research has been clear on this for years. The mainstream fitness industry just has not caught up yet. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, hit like, subscribe, and comment below. Also, be sure to make a visit to the Diet and Exercise website in the comments below. We already did the research for you and sorted out items that are only evidence-backed and lab-tested to get results. Follow us on X and Instagram in the description below for regular tips and tricks on diet and exercise. Until then, we look forward to seeing you next time. And when it comes to diet and exercise, as before, there are no gimmicks, just results.